don't know if you guys have heard of this, but in New York, there's a Working Families Party, and I don't think you're
Yes.
able to do this in a lot of states, but in New York, you can have a party that basically endorses candidates that are running as like Republican or Democrat, so as a way to like build a third
No, you
party
can
that's
do this.
also. Oh,
It's a
you
dual
can?
party system, and only a few states are able to do this based on the legislature again.
Sure. Okay, I want to go back to our original topic because we just strayed so far from it. And give people's opinions.
What,
So,
Biden one?
huh?
Sorry. Oh, what, the creepy Biden topic?
No,
or
no,
Yeah,
the
Biden's policies suck.
No.
Anyways.
your age one?
Yeah, the age, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it seems like there's many reasons why you might want to advocate for that. So Amanda, I'm not sure we got your opinion on that. Like, what's your opinion on like a maximum age?
Yeah, minimum age, I don't see like having too much of an impact since getting people
Mute yourself,
18 to
Dr.
20.
K.
Oh, sorry. Since getting people 18 to 25 to vote is one of the hardest voting blocks to get out the vote. I do think that we should censor boomers and cut off voting ages after the age of 75 years old. Give them no more say. They have no reason to live anymore. So why do they need to continually vote in things that impact the future generations? Kind of memeing, but kind of not. But I think that the can of worms this opens up is just too much to handle, I think, in any political sphere. Like we can't even, like as Dems, win elections, let alone change election laws to benefit us. I think that lowering the age could potentially benefit us, even if it's a very, very small voter turnout. I've noticed engagement when it comes to activism. 16 to 18-year-olds are highly involved. And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the other thing that I actually came on just to shoot out an idea that popped in my head, but it was kind of the wrong timing, but I'm going to do it now if that's okay. What if we allowed parents to vote for their kids since it's their future that we have to think about? And like, especially single parents are, I believe it was like 1 in 10 out of single parent households. Actually, 1 in 10 single people are registered. So the number of single parent household of voter registration is much smaller. It's a huge voting block that we could tap into. And yeah, what do you guys think?
Why? Okay, that seems like so silly. Why would we want to incentivize? Like, we were basically saying that people with kids get 2 votes. Like, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, but why not? Like, I like have to consider myself and my children's
that is
future.
at its core anti-democratic to give people
Well,
more
also,
votes than
wouldn't that
But
harm?
not exactly. I mean, we already have it where, rural Americans have more of a vote. Why can't single parents?
They have more vote in parts of our legislature, but not all of it.
I think most of us would disagree, like, with how the electoral, like, does anyone here stand the current electoral system though?
What, like the electoral college? Yeah.
Based.
I think for it to be like consistent, like one thing,
Dude argues
democracy,
about
they'd be like the electoral college is like cringe, and so is like someone having like 2 votes. I think.
Yeah,
I think
I would
like
be
this
taken
idea
away
is
in
like,
the 30s.
I agree. Like having a utilization of that, yeah, it would be instantly abused for worse. Like it would just create, like, it would just make child exploitation even fucking worse, because now
People are gonna have kids to have a vote.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on this.
I don't think it would be that point, but it would be weird.
I want to go to fines first. Go ahead.
Wait, people don't have a bunch of kids to manipulate the government. Depending, not all people. This is not some broad. Oh, you just have 5 kids to manipulate. That's not a tactic that.
Also, do you get like 1 vote per kid, or like 1 vote for all your kids?
Maybe we could do do like a quarter vote for each kid, or 50% vote for each
Quarter
kid.
vote per kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know
why. No, like, but if you think about it though, like,
I went to for fines. Didn't give time to talk. Go ahead.
I was just gonna make one point. Is that I think that could potentially harm women or people that can give birth. That that choose to opt for abortions, because I think that, like, if you like, I think that adds a new calculation, right? Because
For sure.
if you get an abortion, then you don't have extra representation or whatever. But also, it really depends on whether or not people would even have that incentive to have kids to have extra representation. But I think it could potentially disenfranchise populations that get more abortions.
How?
If
Because
you
Make it a
don't, hold
direct
on. Yeah,
democracy.
hold on. That doesn't make sense. Like, but if you don't have a child, then you don't have a child to represent, which means that there's no vote
This
there.
is
I'm very confused with your
this
thing.
Well,
is
because
strange means testing stuff. Just make
hold
it
on.
a direct.
Go ahead, Fines.
well, it's just a thought. I mean, it might be wrong, but like, just my initial gut reaction was that, well, if you have a kid, then you have someone else to vote for, right? But if you choose to go for an abortion and you therefore don't have a kid, then you don't have that kid to vote for. So
Exactly.
that
You only
means
vote
that,
for
say,
Basically
like,
giving
yourself.
up your right to vote. So basically, I think I get what you're saying. Like basically, an incentivization structure that may be another incentive to keep people from having an abortion because you're giving up
yeah,
one more vote that you could
No,
have.
literally, the fact that you guys
but I
think that
don't know.
someone's
Yeah,
gonna be like, "I'm not gonna have an abortion because I want to have a extra vote,"
It's
is like,
unbelievable.
what?
It's
I don't think that would
unbelievable.
be the incentive for getting an abortion or not. I'm just saying the impact it could have, regardless of that,
What's the
could
impact
lead
Yeah.
then?
What's the impact?
to like only
Okay,
people
so
with.
this man's talking some crazy shit, but to try to steelman this position, I mean, you could say that populations that might be affected might be populations that are more likely to have abortions, and so like poorer people who probably don't have as many they probably have more abortions anyways, but they have more children, they're going to be overrepresented. Actually, you probably see, I would guess
Poor
conservatives would
working
be.
family
I would say
overrepresented.
conservatives would probably be more represented. I would guess they probably have more children than Democrats, I would say.
Hold on.
Um,
They do.
Yeah, just make it a direct
Well,
More
democracy.
parents
Just
vote
you're
Democratic.
overcomplicating everything here.
Well,
Parents vote more Democratic, especially single parents, overwhelmingly Democratic.
stop talking.
yeah, I mean, I think going through these silly gymnastic games of like, oh, it might incentivize people to have more kids, or oh, they might have abortions is silly. At the end of the day, you're essentially, right, because parents are responsible for the children, you're giving parents more than one vote, and then it's like, at its core, like anti-democratic, right? And it's not just like you could argue that like the
Agree.
electoral college is anti-democratic, and we can have that discussion if you want. But
Yes.
you're literally giving like two people who live in the same neighborhood in the same like fucking like on the same street. If one has a kid and one doesn't, they could have the same income and everything. One gets a bigger say than the other, and that's fucking crazy.
So
Yep.
Issues is
No, I'm
And
gonna back you up,
anti-democratic.
Amanda. I'm gonna back you up on this, because I don't think she's like out there. Like I don't think this idea is that crazy. Like you are representing an individual, right? You are representing a person, and that person otherwise doesn't get representation, right? Like children as it stands, like their needs are not actually met, right? The needs of families are met only in terms of like tax purposes. So like if you wanted to have a mechanism to get to so that the voices of children could be heard within the political system, right? And it's not a perfect way of doing this. It's not a perfect way of doing it, but still, if you want to have a mechanism for that to happen, right? Then it would be to give parents multiple votes.
So the pushback against the super easy pushback against this is that one, you're not giving like, so already, right, the reason parents exist, right, is literally and like legally the reason parents exist is literally to represent their children, right? So that is part of their job. So whenever they go out to vote, already they're supposed to be representing their children. If you give them an extra vote, you're not giving the child any say at all. You're literally giving just giving the adult more say, right?
Yeah, because
like
when
if
the
you wanted
adult
to give children a vote,
choose,
like you would probably want to literally just allow people, like younger people, to vote if you wanted to, right?
And I
Like
started off with that.
that would be like a way. No, I don't think that's good, because I think that like it's like adults voting is a pretty reasonable rule. Although I'm not like 100% married to that position. But I think that like trying to do it by like giving the votes to parents is crazy. Especially, I don't know how many of you, but I'm like crazy different like politically than my parents. When I was 16 and 17, I was still crazy different from my parents politically. And to think that like my parent would be casting an extra vote for me, even though I didn't agree with my parent was voting for, is like
Yep.
like the whole
Your
like
parents are
idea
the
of like
ones that, but that's the thing is, your parents are the ones that are paying, like, when they've under 18 typically can file your taxes for you. They're the ones paying for your clothes and all this other stuff. So I think that
Not
they should have a
necessarily.
say. Okay, like let's be real here. Uh, so I think
No,
parents
I
should
live
have.
in a poor ass neighborhood. Like, not
Let it
necessarily.
finish. Let him finish. Amanda, please.
Okay, what was I saying?
You're gonna throw her off. So you were talking to Top Dolphin. Top Dolphin was the last thing you said.
Oh,
no,
yeah, I
you said
interrupted
you were
you,
saying
Top
your
Dolphin. Sorry.
parents. No, you were saying their parents are supposed to represent you. They pay for your clothes. They're the ones in charge of like feeding you and filling out your tax forms.
Yeah, so then like when it comes to policies and codes that affect my children, why shouldn't the parent have a vote in these policies?
Because the
An
child may
extra.
not agree with them.
Yeah,
That's
One, you're
not
not
the
like I
point,
said, you're
And
though.
you
not
shouldn't.
representing the
I think
child.
that
You're just giving the parent already get like so this is like the idea that like okay, let's say that like every time we made a law that impacted some group of people in any way, we gave the impacted group of people an extra vote, right? Like this is like
Unless
already
they
like
had
the
a vote.
idea,
They have a vote. They have
right?
a vote.
The-
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Like, we've already established we're not like if you wanted to get like Prime, you said you wanted to give children the vote. That's separate. But giving a parent a vote on behalf of children isn't giving a child a vote. It's giving a parent a second vote. That's like saying, oh, we're gonna pass legislation on like race stuff, so we're gonna give black people an extra vote for that. We're gonna pass legislation on like agriculture. We're gonna give like farmers an extra vote for that. No, like if by being a parent, like when you cast your vote, you are casting a vote representing like parents, and that's the case for like
Kids,
all like classes in the United States.
exactly.
We don't
Kids
give
are
people
counted
extra
in
votes.
the census and things like this. And so like this is the thing is like they are an actual body. So like you want to talk about other like minority groups that are affected. Well, you don't have an extra body to represent in those groups. Like just because you're a farmer doesn't mean you have a farmer body in your normal body. Like
But wait,
hold on, wait, I want to
wait.
wait. Prime, can I say one thing? I think the ideology behind it is what's getting lost, and they're hung up on. I don't know.
The
I feel like
allocation
maybe
of
you can explain it
resources.
better.
You're like, so you brought up the census, right? The census is used for the allocation of resources. The allocation of resources is done by representatives that are elected by the body, right? The local body. So, like, if we're going to be giving over resources on the basis of having a certain amount of people there, then we should have maybe votes that match the number of people, these possible voters, because not everyone's going to vote any which way, right? Possible voters that match that number of people. So either by giving votes to children, or by giving it to their parents, if we think that their parents, like maybe like it's like parents with kids under like 5-year-olds, like people like can't be expected to read. Maybe they get an extra vote. But at the very least, if we're going to be giving out resources on the basis that there are people here, right? There are 100 people in this environment, but 50 of those people are kids, right? That means only 50 people at the most get to actually make those decisions, right?
So
But
like,
yeah,
what is
yeah,
the stop?
okay.
Like, my
Wait.
question is like, what's the stop necessarily? Like, let's say I live in a town, like in a school, and like the parents all decide to come together and vote and say that like all of the funding is going to go towards the school system and playgrounds and stuff like that. And your other working class families are like, yo, the roads ain't been fixed. Like, I can't drive to work. Like, oh, by the way, like, we need other things, right? Like,
okay, so I think it's a ridiculous example, right? And for multiple reasons. One, like those parents, right, also drive those exact same roads, right? Those parents have all kinds of interests beyond being
Right,
parents.
bad
Right?
example, but you get
Okay.
the idea.
No,
Like,
no, I
what?
hear what
Okay,
you're
what if
saying.
there is some interest, right, that parents have that like non-parents don't have, and they use this power to necessarily like
happens
legislate
now.
the non-parents, right?
That happens now. That happens with any interest group, right? With any groups that have opposing interests, like they use their power
Yeah, but
against the other group.
but this time, right? Instead, you are literally like at the fundamental level of what an election is, giving one group like an actual more say than the other,
But we're
right?
but we're doing it specifically because there are bodies that are actually unrepresented. It's anti-democratic to not allow those children to vote, right? To have a minimum age of voting is anti-democratic in and of itself, right? The people below, right? Like start with the high schoolers. The people below there are thinking individuals who are affected by the rules of our society, right? By our governance. And them not having a vote, it actually makes a huge difference. There is no lobby for children, right? That doesn't exist because children are voters, so it's like it doesn't matter, right? And so that plays itself out in our politics. So, right, this is
So the
trying
lobby
to give
for
them
children is supposed to be
representation.
the children's parents, right?
But it
Yeah,
doesn't work out that
there's-
way. But it doesn't work out
There's
that way. It doesn't
parental
work out in the
groups that
exact
lobby
same
for
way.
children.
There isn't like it. You would think that would be enough, but clearly it's not. So if we had one way of doing this, either it's giving the parents an extra vote, or making sure those kids could vote.
So
like, can
do
3-year-olds
the
vote now?
latter.
Are you cool
If
with
you
like
really-
3-year-olds like
Well, it's
casting votes in our elections?
How
Like,
No,
often?
if
They-
you really want to do the latter, like don't give the parents the votes. If you really want to.
We give the parents the ability to make decisions on behalf of their children for literally everything. Why is it an issue when it comes down to
Literally
voting?
everything else.
Should they have the right to vote, they would have as varied opinion as the general public, because every type of person has kids. Thus, it would not really even affect the electorate all that much. You don't need to do it. Like,
No, it would affect the electorate. I don't know if it affect the electorate. It would definitely incentivize parents to get out the vote. It would bring more key issues that affect women and like family paid leave and things like that. It would change a lot of things. Like to say that
just
it
have
wouldn't is silly.
I just have a question, and this is just a question.
okay.
I just want you to answer it. Like, what would stop like rich people from like adopting a bunch of kids to get a ton of votes?
Because that would be dumb and not in their interest. It's
Well,
like-
they would then have to take care of the kids.
Yeah.
Which they probably
Because
like
then-
hire
Yeah,
nannies
like
and make
what?
them
They're
little
rich, they
factories.
just pay nannies.
They're the star.
Yeah, they then
300
would make
times
little
more
factories
days.
for.
Like-
So Jeff Bezos, the richest man on earth, who has the ability to buy a small country, like be able to just like
Exactly.
He already buys our elections.
You know,
And, like we
you're
could
like-
literally
Yeah.
legislate.
No,
We could
I don't know,
legislate where it's
but like,
biological
voice over this, it almost makes it almost better because
discriminate.
like
Only
Wait, hold on.
because-
Why? Wait, you said legislate biological kids. Why would we do that? Because now the kid, like, if I adopt a kid, that kid isn't represented anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
well,
According to what you said before, that's like
hold
undemocratic.
on,
right?
I was totally memeing right there.
Yeah. So what's to stop Jeff Bezos from like going? Let's say he wants to go to some small town in Wyoming, right?
Because Jeff
He wants
Bezos has
he
enough
wants
money to
he
buy
wants
elections
adopt
without
a
buying
farm of
kids.
right?
He has enough
Adopt
money
a
to do
farm of
this
kids,
without
right?
kids.
Jeff,
Yeah, I mean, all you'd have to do in theory is just say limited to X amount of kids.
but now you're doing
No,
a China
Family
ball.
household of
Yeah,
4.
yeah.
You
now
don't
we're
have
in
to do
China.
that. You actually hold on.
But
You actually don't have to do that because this is a ridiculous. I mean, I thought you guys were memeing, but apparently not. So I'm going to take this seriously for a second, right?
No, like if you have
No,
10 kids
it
like
doesn't
that,
make
that'll be
fucking
the
sense
limit.
for Jeff Bezos to go out and adopt like 100 kids to get 100 extra more votes because Jeff Bezos
Yeah.
enjoys his life as it is, and like he can still go to jail for like a rampant childhood neglect, right? Like he doesn't want to have to deal with this.
but
He
for
just
those kids-
he
for
just
those
pays
kids,
he just
for
pays
those
nannies and
kids,
buys all these
but
kids' houses,
360
right?
But that
It's
hassle.
cheaper
hold
to
on.
buy
But hold on,
politicians
oh my
other
god, oh my god.
ways.
Oh, I'm talking, please. On the other side of it, what he can do and what's effective, what's been working for him so well, right now, what gives him a negative tax rate where the government pays him, right? What he's been doing is simply buying off of the government with legalized bribes. Our legalized bribery system is right there, right? He has all the
Yeah.
money in the world, the most effective way of changing the government is by lobbying, right? Directly lobbying, which it already has. Why?
I really like
Why
how
would
you
he
said
want
that.
and what to tip what? Like with 100 extra more votes to tip a local election? Like it doesn't make any fucking sense. It don't make
Yeah, no,
any sense.
my main
And
thing.
let's just get rid of billionaires.
Yeah,
Then
Well, I mean,
like
yeah, obviously,
Well, yeah,
but
tax
like,
the rich.
eat the rich, but like on top of that already, right? Is like the I'm basically won over. The only concern I still have is you cannot necessarily know that a parent is going to vote in the best interest of their child or children at large.
But you don't know if they're going to
Well,
vote in their interests all the time either.
right,
People
exactly.
don't
Like
vote for their interests
Well,
constantly.
yeah,
But one
the
actual
whole
question.
Wait, but people
well,
who
at
don't vote
that
for their
point,
interests probably think they're
so
voting
well
for their
here
interests, right?
can I talk to finance because I want to explore this like on a one-on-one where we don't have a huge clusterfuck for half a second.
Okay.
So the basic underlying assumption of democracy, right, is that the people voting are rational self-interest actors, right? If you get rid of that assumption, you've basically gotten rid of like the whole reason for having a democracy at that point. So like no, if we want to keep doing democratic stuff, we do have to be operating under the assumption that voters will vote for at least their best interest, right? Or what they perceive to be their best interest.
I mean, I guess I'm fine.
It's simply that when you extrapolate that to a different human being, that of their kid or the community of children in general, that's when you get to the point where it's a little murky water whether they will be voting in the best interest of those. But
Yeah.
honestly,
I
in
think though,
I mean,
theory,
can
it's
I
good
say
in
one
theory,
thing?
but
so,
like
into that
in
aspect,
reality,
like more than likely, I think when you get to that aspect, more than likely, I don't think it's that hard of a take for us to say that like children, more than likely, when they get out and start voting, will more than likely vote in the way that of their
not
parents' ideology.
necessarily. No. That's
You don't think so for the most part, at least.
that. There are broad strokes to that, but to say that it is a perfect or even close to perfect representation
Never said
is
that.
yeah, exactly. So like
I said most.
not necessarily like an overwhelming amount of most though. I would put it around like 60-40, 70-30 if anything.
Okay.
Like
Still,
Wait,
that's a
you're
lot.
put 60,
I'd say
30, 70,
70-30.
40 what?
I'd say
What are you
70-30 is a lot. Like we're talking about like basically the idea of the argument of basically the parent's influence over the child and whether or not the parent will actually advocate for the child. Basically my thing on regards to that is like the concept of like children more than likely like at least when they start to vote in general will already have basically their parents ideology when they start voting in the first place. So I mean, so if the concern is, oh well, the parent will just vote for this anyways. Well, I'm positing that.
well, like for LGBT kids, that's really
like?
not the case.
Well, no. So, like
Like
for messaging and stuff, that's a really good point. When I target younger groups, 18 to 20 and 21, I definitely have that perspective in mind. And the messaging that we use is non-controversial to what they could have been raised with.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the same thing that we had to deal with when I was working with my local organization because we're predominantly red, and so it's like whenever we were engaging with the younger people, like usually more often than not, like the arguments that you were getting from them were literally arguments that you were getting from their parents, like fucking 5 minutes earlier. When their parents came through our political booth.
that's
one
because they're
question.
Which is why we stay completely away from like abortion topics and stuff, and we gear more towards like land. It'd be more climate change, but when we
but they
talk,
would be voting on that.
yes, but when we're trying to flip someone, we flip them on a specific issue, so it's not going to be abortion.
Yeah,
one question I
but
did have
keep in
is
mind that
who
will
would
be
vote.
something you'll have to
Fine.
cross eventually.
Fines.
One question I did have is who would vote for like orphans and people under the foster care system? Would it be the foster care like care holders?
No,
Oh, actually, I was
the-
gonna
Or would it be
bring
the people
something up
adopting
similar.
them?
so the
Or
way
like-
that like
Oh.
yeah, go no, you go ahead.
Go ahead,
I've
new
talked
person.
a lot.
Oh yeah, so I was just gonna. Well, it was kind of a meme thing, but it actually relates. But the kids should have to vote on which parent cast their ballot, which parent votes for them.
I think that'd
Yeah,
come down
true.
to like
Which
taxes.
parent
No,
gets the vote,
easy
right?
tax. The one that files, the one that has the child more than 6 months out of the year, which is how we
But why
file
can't the
taxes
kid
now as
vote
it is.
on which parent?
What if their parents live together? Like,
What was that? Sorry.
which parent? Whether their parents live together, who gets to vote?
I would say that the person claiming head of household in taxes then.
So the person claiming head of household gets to vote for the child.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the person claiming head of household also get to vote for the other spouse?
Because that is an adult who can make their own decisions and is not represented by their parents and is filing together opposed to a dependent.
What if oh yeah, well they're technically they might be a dependent. What if you have a
Don't get
what about
complicated on me.
what about adult dependents, or like the hypothetical is bring up, what if you had someone who's really old and like mentally
Yeah.
unable to like take care of, should someone get to vote for them?
So the way the laws currently work, like power of attorneys and stuff can't vote for people that they are power of attorneys over.
Why?
So like
But why not? Why not? Like, I mean, that's the way it is. But why shouldn't they be able to?
yeah.
Right? These people, like, I'm like, I have dementia and I'm like 75. Like, why doesn't I'm a body who's not getting a vote? Why doesn't someone get to vote on my behalf?
So this argument is going to destroy why parents should vote for their children, and it's because the way that we view elections and your vote as an individual voting mechanism, which is why power of attorneys
Yeah, we
can't
don't let people vote by
vote.
proxy.
Exactly. But I think in parental situations that we could make an accommodation.
Yeah, I think I mean, though, someone was making that really good argument. If there's one child and two parents, who gets a vote? If you're saying head of household, well, that's almost always men, right? So I don't think they
Yeah.
want
Like
that.
the problem is when you let people start voting by proxy. Yeah, like you got all these, like, because like we don't only vote on things that affect children. But, now you could argue that everything affects children because it affects the world that they live in. But like you can necessarily like have men voting for like things that like are more likely to go towards them because they're head of households. You can have like single mothers voting for things that like are disproportionately like advantage to them, right? And not because they have children, but because they're women, for example. You could have like people who are in, like, the problem is you have people in like a lot of different specific circumstances who would necessarily get to like push their idea, their beliefs, right, on our voting system a second time, right? Regardless of like what the child believes, because like they're not necessarily representing the child's interest in everything that they vote for.
I would be okay if the vote went to specifically mothers. Like, it was like it defaults to mothers unless like the mother is not in the picture. But still, there's no way that's gonna happen.
Well,
How do you
hold
define
on.
mothers? What about single fathers? Like,
Wait,
no, I'm
so the
saying
way
it's
that
defaults. But then single
Well, no.
fathers, they can take it. Yeah.
the way demographics are already set up are kind of in that way. So we have, I feel like, is like 54% maybe are married couples, and the other half is single couples. But over 80% of those single parent households are mothers. So
Oh, yeah, so I guess the
so
question
I
I've
mean,
been wondering.
4%, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a big difference of like.
so it's actually 11 million voters
Gem?
as of like 2018. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've just been wondering, like, why, would the parents voting for the children, like, why is that better than just letting the kids vote? Like, what are like the pros and cons here? Because to me, it feels like at that point, why wouldn't you just let the kids vote? Because I'm like, the kids aren't gonna vote 1-to-1 the same as the parents, but I'd imagine they'd vote like pretty similar. And I also don't think like the kids would vote for like any like insane candidate, like, I don't know, like the ice cream man or like something weird.
Whoa, wait, hold
No,
on.
like, hold on.
You think if
You have to worry about
Kanye
their
ran in
parents.
2024 and kids could vote, they wouldn't be voting Kanye up like nobody's business?
Mickey Mouse swim.
I mean, some kid, but
No,
I
I
mean,
think
how
as
many
long as
people
we
voted
claim
him
to,
as a meme anyway? Like any more than like adults? I don't know.
I
They'll
think if
I
vote
we
mean,
for
my
stuck
you.
to
prom king was voted
dependence,
on the memes, so
I think if we stuck to dependence, it could be really interesting, especially if we continued, like Obamacare, the ACA, where we had children, or not children, but like, was it 24 years old that you were still covered under your parents' insurance and things like that? So
I think it's up to 26.
26, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know if I'd want to go all the way that high up, but like, as long as you're still claiming a child as dependent, as long as you're still paying for um, specific policies and procedures that are going to affect these children and that you're filing them, like I said, as a dependent, I feel like that would be the line on how to determine who can vote and who can't, age limit wise.
Wait. So what? So like, what if I'm a kid who goes off to college? My parents are supporting me, and I'm like super left, but my parents are like staunch Republicans. They get to cast the vote for me, or they get an extra vote. But now I'm representing myself too because I'm over 18. Like, how does that work?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Because you said like up to like 26, right? Right.
Oh yeah, so
like-
I said
so,
that I
like-
wouldn't want it to go that high. I wouldn't want it to go that
let's
high.
say it was 20.
Okay,
Let's
you
say it was
don't need to
20. Like,
hash out every fucking policy, man. Holy shit! Like you like Dolphin. You're
But-
criticizing hypothetical policies that don't exist yet. All right.
No,
Like,
I'm
hold on, isn't
100.
this
I'm
whole-
100% with Dolphin on this one. Like Jesus
Jesus.
Christ. Like no, I'm Jesus Christ. Like Dolphin's just like struggling here because like Jesus, we are still entertaining this shit. Like bro, if letting infants like vote, if that's democratic, I don't want to be democratic, but I'm authoritarian now.
Hold on,
Like
Jeff.
Jesus Christ, what the fuck is this idea?
Letting
Why are
letting
we- why are
parents
we
have
still on this?
representation is democratic. Letting parents have
Oh,
representation.
parents
is
already have
democratic.
representation. You're arguing for representation for their children.
Okay, so my actual position, I'm actually close to the position of just having kids vote directly, right? And yeah, giving infants the right to vote. You know what you don't have to worry about though is infants actually voting, okay? Because infants actually aren't going to be able to vote. So the person who turned me on to this, right, was Vivian, Mixed Vivian Wolf, who isn't here with us right now. But it was a fine idea. Oh my god, Top. Top that noise that came out of your mouth. But it was a fine idea. I pushed back the way you guys pushed back at the time. But like there's no reason to have that minimum age because those kids, those young kids, any which way, aren't going to be utilizing this vote. Instead, the people who have the ability to actually make it to the booth and cast a vote can do that. At this point in time, we have trouble getting anyone at any age range to actually come out to vote, right? This would increase the electorate and have politicians try to reach out to them, right? To actually take care of the needs of kids. And a lot of kids actually are on the ball, right? They can understand. They can see, for instance, that their schools are falling apart, right? If you get politicians to actually have to answer to kids, right, to get their vote to succeed, right? Well, maybe they'll actually address those schools. Maybe that'll be a thing. It's not the craziest idea.
Okay,
so like, I just think it's very weird. Yeah, I just think it's weird, like, because first of all, like, this whole conversation started, right? Because everyone was like, yeah, how do we make America more progressive? Oh, I know, let's stop old people from being president, and that will make America more progressive. And now we are going all the way back and be like, no, actually, let's expand the democracy. Let's not restrict it. Let's expand it, and now let's have all the fucking Mormons with 7 kids have their votes worth more than the average person. And it's just like, bro, America is not going to become progressive when you let like first of all, the people who can afford to have kids, the people who have multiple kids, the people who are very religious and because of that have kids, like, it's just, and besides that, and even on principle, like, why are we doing this? Like, children are not equipped to make these decisions. Like, they're simply not.
Now you fucked up. That one line, that's where you fucked up. Because a lot of people are not equipped to make that. This is what we were talking about last night. A lot of people are not equipped to make that decision. If you're saying, well, it has to do, if you're saying that it has to do with the brain, well, then we could say, well, the people who are mentally deficient, I don't know the words for it now, but that the people who have cognition issues, then they're not able to. I mean, like obviously, right? I mean, they can't. They
okay.
have
I'm okay with 16-year-olds voting, like 14-year-olds even, but like not infants.
no.
Like,
There are people, there are adults, right, with a cognition of an 8-year-old, right? Should they be able to vote? Should we
okay.
take away their vote?
I have no idea, man. Like
Oh, why
I'm gonna
not?
be honest. No. I'm telling you. If I had two choices in my hand, right?
Mhm.
One choice, I'd disallow these people from voting, and I'd also disallow children from voting. And on the other hand, I'd allow both of them to vote. I choose the other. I'm sorry. Like I think mentally adult people should be able to vote. But if I were to make that decision of like, if you're putting me in the corner of like, oh, you have to choose to pick one of those two sides. I'm sorry. I'm gonna pick the one in which only people in which infants are not voting.
What is
Like
the
this is
danger
just
of
this
infants
just
voting? What happens when infants vote?
what happens when infants vote.
Yeah.
You distort. First of all, you distort the whole demographic of people who are voting, because infants are going to vote to their parents more than likely. You completely disenfranchise the people who are single, poor, who are more likely to not have kids, to not have like do not be able to afford kids the way other people can. And it's just like, bro. Why are we entertaining this, Prime? This is absolutely against your goals. Like this
No.
whole thing started with you wanting America to like go to a direction. This will make it go to the completely opposite direction.
This does not.
Okay, wait, hold on.
So I have a question though.
This-
Like, so my idea, like, what if this like unfair? Like, I would guess, right, that like demographics, like rich people and like wealthier people, like upper class Americans, would probably have an easier time getting their kids out to vote. So if like, and at that point, like the parents probably have a lot of say over like what their kids can do. So if like I'm like a wealthy parent and I have like a 6-year-old, like I kind of get 2 votes, and the working class mom who can't take time off work to get to go vote, or doesn't have a car to get to the voting booth, or whatever other roadblocks that they face, right, doesn't get that extra vote, right? And it's just like more like we're favoring wealthy
So
people
people-
again.
Amanda, go. I do want to yell at Venom because I have all kinds of things to counter him. But go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, so upper class and wealthy individuals have less children. So I
Yeah,
don't
but they
see
probably
that-
have more access to polling, is what I was saying. So I don't care if like a
but they
lower
ha-
class
they have,
individual
like-
has like 30 kids. Like the person with 30 kids isn't going to be able to get all 30 kids to the booth, whereas the person with 2 kids might get the 2 kids to the booth, and now they have effectively a 300% more like increased vote over the like poor person, right?
And the person that has 30 kids and can vote on their behalf only has to get themselves to the poll. So if we want to literally have more democracy, more representation, then we would allow this. But so the conversation started up when how to make politics more progressive. Is that what I just heard? How to get this more progressive? Literally allowing parents and single parents to vote for their children is one of the in my head right now. Just flying off of like going through all the data that I've looked up throughout the years and stuff is one of the most essential ways to do it, just because of how large the voting block is for single parents. You have 11 million, actually 13 million single mothers. You have a couple million more single fathers. And the vast majority of these parents vote Dems,
So
and they vote more progressive when
So-
they do vote.
Well, so you're concerned. I'm going to yell at both of these people. First, you top. I'm saying that, well, if you get your 2 kids to the polls when you have 300%, or was it 200% more a vote, right? You get those 2 kids. However, my parents end up doing what I tell them to. They ask me, "Hey, Prime," guess that's what they call me. Hey, Prime, like who to vote for? Well, they're like, we know you know that politics stuff. So I get 2 extra votes. Should I not have parents, right? Would that be the best way of doing this, right? Or should I not have a vote? Should I be disenfranchised, maybe? Like, the fact that someone has undue influence on another happens all the time for all kinds of reasons, right? You could say that rich people have an undue influence, and I do. Rich people have an undue influence on the electorate because of their money, right?
do.
And being able to have to affect the affect the thinking of so many people by like putting ads and ads and ads out. We already have this in our society, right? This idea of undue influence. But still, right, that doesn't mean that we stop all these things. Now, some of the things I think should be ended, but the very fact, like an 18-year-old, you guys have already said it. So an 18-year-old coming straight out of their parents' house, right? Oftentimes they're going to vote the same way any which way. Should they not be able
Not
to vote at 18? Right? 19? Not necessarily. Great. Well, then not necessarily will a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old or an 8-year-old actually vote the way their parents will, right? If you're saying that it's not 100% that they'll be voting for voting in line with their parents' sake, right? Then that's true at 18 and it's true at 8 years old. So in that case, why not let the kids vote?
The difference is that at 18, we say that the child is like above the age of majority and can go vote, right?
No,
Like
I mean,
we
I'm
give
saying
them that
I'm
power,
changing
right?
that.
Universally.
I'm changing that. I'm changing that so it's
You're changing that to 8,
to
right?
0. No, to 0, to age 0. To
Honestly, you guys have moved me on this. I'm
And
now
let's
not
let
against
pregnant
it.
women
Oh.
vote for their yes.
Oh my God.
Let's let pregnant women vote for their babies.
No.
Sorry.
I can no.
And then I
So
want to
I'm-
yell at Venom later, but go ahead.
I'm
Please
no
do.
longer I'm no longer against this. I'm now of the school of I'm not gonna do jack shit to stand in the way of it, but I'm not gonna do jack shit to advocate for it.
Yeah, like
So-
I need your allyship. Come on.
Yeah,
Support me. I am a
exactly.
single mother.
Hold on,
Come
but-
on.
Yeah,
but-
you get a nice big thumbs up and a good luck, kid.
But before
need more
you
than
guys
that.
jump in, I want to hear from Fines and Mugplug, right? But Venom, fuck, what was the last thing you said? I was too busy like enjoying yelling at Top Dolphin.
I have no idea,
you were
man. I'm
saying
just
you were
going through
saying
the
something
motions
about
here.
like this. If I had two choices, I was facing in the corner. Then you choose the one that was least democratic, right? In terms of taking
Yeah.
people's votes away, like you would.
Yes,
choose the vote-
if I had to, if I was forced to, I would take that choice because the idea of like having 50 million children impacting the future of my country is fucking terrifying.
But hold on. Your country. Wait a minute. Let's talk about your country just for a second. Again, right? Let's talk about your country. Let's talk about how the fact that so many people were fooled and thinking, what was the progressive president that got locked up? I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Lula, yes, Lula da Silva. I apologize. That Lula da Silva was like a was it a child predator or whatever it was, right? Like on those WhatsApp rooms, right? People, adults, got fooled into thinking that he was like a crook and he was a child fiddler and any other crazy ass lie came out of those rooms. Adults got fooled into doing that. Adults. So clearly, and they were completely fucking wrong. Lula was locked up for bullshit. So if adults can make those mistakes, right? Then why don't we let kids? I mean, adults are plenty easily be fooled. Like, why do you think adults have anything special? They've proven time and time again. We elected Trump in this country. Adults did that. So then, why are you so against this?
Can you repeat the name real quick?
Hold on.
It's
Venom.
It's Lula, man. You're a bit confused on the history of my country, but like I won't dog you for that. Like it's not your fault. And
what am I confused about?
Okay. The idea that people just got mass fooled by this. Like the majority of people believed in him. Like he was more popular.
Doesn't have to be majority.
It doesn't have to be majority. It just have to be a substantial amount of people. Okay. What I'm gonna say is, right, like if you want to elect like Jake Paul as your president, that's a great way to go about it, letting children vote. If
I don't know.
it's okay, like whatever, and just imagine anyone that makes children TV shows or children like entertainment.
That's not
like
gonna happen.
it's you elected an entertainer already, like from to a children's entertainer. That's not a big leap. And man, I'm telling you, this is and I mean with all the love, a terrible idea. This is a dog shit idea.
I want to deal with this because, sir, first of all, do children outnumber adults, right? So if you're saying that's the case, right? Do children even outnumber adults? Do you think that even if we let children vote, that there will be so many children that it will outnumber adults, so that if this child entertainer, whoever this kid, I'm assuming this is a real person, not a cartoon, but if this this entertainer comes through and has a platform, right? If it's a good platform, then maybe they should be fucking present, right? But still, like, do you think there'll be so many children that they could completely override adults, like who want, like, I don't know, Obama, right? And win the election? Or will it simply add to what's already happening?
I believe, right? And I'll say this. I believe that children are going to get in the way of any good decision that you could possibly make when it comes to the democratic process.
Why?
That-
Why, hon? Why that? And why
Because
not? Adults have proven that they can be untrustworthy with a vote. Why are you
okay,
saying that children are somehow
adults
special or
adults
worse?
okay, adults can be incompetent. Children are inherently incompetent.
No,
It's just like
you're
they are.
that
They are.
is terrible.
They are
That's
inherently
absolutely
incompetent. I'm
terrible.
sorry to say it.
Do
It is terrible, but it is
that is
terrible
not
because
the
it is
case.
true.
Hold on. Kids
It
all
is
the time
absolutely
are
the case.
organizing. They're organizing like for the planet or for the future. How many kids have left school, right? Like have had to walk out from school or have taken other like organizational actions for like climate change because they understand this is a problem and they want to deal with it. And we're talking about fucking elementary school kids can do this much, right? Can understand this much, right? Like the people who are more likely to vote are the kids who are older in the first place, right? And it'll be the ones who are politically engaged in the first place. So those people, if you can talk to them, if you can have a conversation with them about their needs, right, which otherwise is not being addressed by the political system, why not have that? Why not incentivize politicians to actually talk about it, right? And then to say that, well, it's just because they're incompetent when we know people don't even take their votes seriously. People don't, literally, adults don't even fucking research their votes, ever, right? Sitting out there not researching their votes. And to say necessarily that kids are worse or manifestly worse, and I just don't see it.
I got a question for you, Prime. All right. My question is, okay, we don't even allow kids to have like the autonomy over like their own medical decisions, right? Like, right? So like you think we should allow them to vote, but we shouldn't allow them to like make decisions for like their medical being, make decisions for like their living situations and all these other things. That seems like a little bit ridiculous. Like we don't expect a kid to like value their own life when like they're making a decision in like a doctor's office. Yet we decide that this child can like go into a polling booth and like value our entire country.
I will answer that in a second. Amanda Smash, Nair Socks, and my man Pisco resubbing for 18 months. Thank you so much for the kindness. Helps out a ton. Hey, we're at a level 1 hype train. Level 1 hype train. 50% down, 50% left. Can we get to a level 2 hype train? 3.5 minutes left on the clock. Sub to the channel to get that if you've been playing ads during. Oh my god, Dr. K, you have to mute. Oh my god. But yeah, we've been playing ads through the open panel. If you want to avoid those ads, want to get all of this, right? All of my great takes and me dunking on. You don't miss a minute of me dunking on Venom, okay? Right? So if you want to get all of that, consider tipping the channel. Like Crystal Clear Art just did. Thank you, Crystal Clear, for being so kind. That's to get the 100 bits. Putting us 53%, 47% left. Can we get to a level 2 hype train? Oh, and then Amanda Smash gives 300 bits as well. Thank you so much. Putting us 63%, with 37% left. If you again are valuing this, if you're enjoying this, you've come through. First of all, if you're brand new, hit that follow button. You haven't done so yet, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on, because we do 6 nights a week. But beyond that, support the channel, tip the channel, like Crystal Clear Art just did again with another 400 bits. Then Amanda Smash with another 150 bits. Right, we're moving along. We're at 82% of a level 1 hype train. 18% left. Can we get to a level 2 hype train? That's how I pay for this. That's how I pay for Adam here, right? Our boy Top Dolphin, to come here to ask me questions that I like completely ace, and then like he sits there, right, with his with his heart broken, right, with his mind like struggling to like comprehend like the wisdom that I just dropped on him, right? If you want to see that face again, right? If you
Wait, I'm getting paid.
Adam's the best. I love Adam. Thank you for 75 bits, Amanda. And 5 koi or squoi, I don't know, for the 100 bits. Thank you so much. 88% of the 100 bits, putting us at 88%. Oh, and then Crystal Clear Art gifts a sub to OCH underscore TV. Thank you so much, Crystal Clear Art, for the kindness. Helps us out so much. We're at 21 subs. 21 subs, right? Can we get to a level 2 hype or level 3 hype train? We just got to level 2. Can we get to level 3 hype train? Thank you, Amazing Dr. K, for the 69 bits. Nope, I'll take it. Okay. And then a mass smash for another 50 bits. That puts us at 6% because of the kindness of these individuals. That puts us at 6% of a level 2 hype train. Can we get to level 3 hype train? Is it a possibility? It's all up to you. Help us out. Now's the time, right? Well, thank you for the follow, Sam UL Jackson. Thank you for following the channel. But yes, help us out to get to a level 2 hype train, right? Or level 3 hype train by subbing to the channel, right? Those subs mean a lot. Only $5. Only $5, right? For more of this content, top level stuff, right? Help us out with that, or gift bits, as these fine people have been doing so far, or gift subs. That goes on, helps us out a ton. And when you give subs, sometimes other people will decide they're going to continue on their subs, right? Thank you, Mojo, for the 500 bits. Thank you so much. That's awfully kind of you. Thank you for supporting this community, right? Putting us 19%, 81% left, right? Can we get to level 3 hype train? 3.5 minutes on the clock. Yes, let's make that happen. And thank you, Amanda Smash, for another 300 bits. Oh man, you guys are so nice. Yeah, thank you. And remember, if you have a sub, if you are continuing a sub, right? If you have a resub, use that resub. That helps out the hype train, right? So you have a resub ready to pop, use that resub. It moves along the hype train. Consider continuing a sub if you got a sub from one of our kind donors, right? Consider extending your sub. If you already have a sub and you're like, oh, I don't want to give anyone any money, right? Well, then fine. Consider extending your sub, and you'll get a discount for doing that, for extending your sub into the future, and you'll be supporting this community. Helps us out so much, right? Or if you have Amazon Prime / Prime Gaming, use your one free sub per month on this community, because we give you so much, right? Enjoying this content, use your Amazon Prime on this community, right? So we're at 26% of a level 2 hype train, right? Can we get to a level 3 hype train? We're almost, we're making it there in this way, right? Sub, gift bits, or gift subs. We have 2 minutes left on the clock. 2 minutes left on the clock. Help us out, support the channel, invest in this community. If you're enjoying this content, this is how I make this happen, right? I can't do it without you at home sitting there, right? I can't do it without you. So we have less than 2 minutes left. So let's see if we can make that happen. Okay. Back to was it the top Dolphins? He leave? Or no? Did he walked away from his mic? Okay. I guess I can't answer. I was going to answer his question, but we'll wait for him to come back. First, before that, then. And while we're seeing if people might help out, because we're at 27%, right? 73% left. Can we get to a level 3 hype train? Is it a possibility? Consider subbing to the channel, gifting bits or gifting subs, getting emotes, and getting the hype train emotes that come along with a hype train, right? We're at level 2 hype train. Consider getting those emotes. And of course, supporting this. If you like this community, if you enjoy this community, provides anything for you. If you like being able to come here 6 nights a week, well then consider being so kind. Thank you, Crystal Clear Art, for you got your 1K bits badge. Okay, that just came through. There's always a delay on that thing. But thank you so much, Amanda Smash, for the 100 bits there. 29%, 71% left. Can we make it to a level 3 hype train? We have less than a minute left on the clock. Small, medium, and large donations all help the hype train. You can see the numbers add up. You can see it push along. But we have less than 30 seconds left. 30 seconds left. But thank you all for the kindness, the ones you've been supporting, like Amanda Smash and Crystal Clear, Mojo. Who else? Dr. K2 throwing her pocket change at us. Five, Koi. And who else? It's Crystal Clear, Pisco, Nair Socks, all of you. Thank you for helping us out so far, getting us as far as we did. Do appreciate that. Okay, Dolphin. You asked me a question, and I want to dodge it. Well, what was it again? I apologize.
Yeah. So I kind of remember it, but I wrote it down. Oh no, I didn't actually. Okay, so I got off the dome. Yeah. So I said like it was about like we give like we've made the decision in society, right? And you can say this is like right or wrong, that children necessarily don't have decisions over things like their own life, right? Like when it comes to medical decisions in the hospital, children aren't allowed to make those decisions if they're under the age of 18. Like their parents have to make them for them, or if there's no parents, they assign like a person who's in charge of them from the hospital to make those decisions. Yeah, well, they can't make like decisions to keep their bodies alive. We allow them to, you want to, in this hypothetical world, allow them to like make the decision to like walk into a poll and like decide the fate of our like future country. Like how do you deal with that discrepancy, I guess? Like I feel like that's like a little bit of a mismatch in like thought.
Mm,
Can he re-explain the discrepancy? Sorry.
Yeah, so like when you go into when a child goes into a hospital, for example, they are not allowed to make it like a life or death like decisions, right? Like a parent does it for them, or like there's a word for it, but like a doctor who's assigned to that children if they don't have a parent, like they're an orphan, or if the
Guardianship.
parents aren't around.
It's a
But
guardian.
like,
A legal guardian.
yeah,
It's
legal guardian.
guardianship.
Anyways, sorry, keep going.
However, like what we're proposing is letting these same people who we don't even allow to make decisions on their like life or death decisions on their own body, right? To like make decisions on the future of our nation and like
Which is-
vote.
I guess doesn't that come back to letting parents do it for them?
I would say we also, for people who have mental disabilities, right? This is the same. It's the same thing. People who have mental disabilities, they also get a chance to vote, even though otherwise they may have a conservatorship, right? Even though they have a guardian that makes all their decisions, but they're still allowed to vote. Are you saying that they should not be allowed to vote? That people who fall below whatever arbitrary standard that you set, because they aren't necessarily taking care of themselves, because they don't, because someone else decides that they get a vaccine or not rather than themselves, that they shouldn't have a right to vote?
Yeah.
Maybe an American lawyer can like correct me, but I believe that the court has the ability to declare someone incapable of exercising their right to vote. So like this is already a thing that can happen. So it's just it's
I don't know about
like
that.
it's like
I mean,
I mean
I don't know. I don't know
I
if that's
believe
true.
I believe so. Like we can maybe chat can tell me. Like I don't know, but I think that's already a thing. Like at least just like from memory and going to like quick Google search. I'm a different type of lawyer. I'm not don't exercise law in the US, so I wouldn't know. But it's just like that seems to be like an option. And besides, like we are still entertaining the scenario in which you get little Johnny, you take him on a stroller to the voting booth, you give him a paper, he eats the paper, and then you look like that's not what you're supposed to do with the paper. You give him another paper, he draws a smiley face on that paper, and then you give him a third paper, and then the motherfucker is able then to like, oh, okay, and then he writes there and he votes for someone. It's just like children are stupid. Children are legitimately. I'm here
So is most of the voting bloc of Americans.
I'm sorry. Children are more stupid. I'm going to die on the hill.
Okay,
Children are
but
more stupid.
sorry, I
They're
stepped out for a
more.
second.
Oh,
Why? Like, yes, children are stupid, which is why we are discussing giving this vote to parents. So don't know why we're back
So
to
giving parents to
coordinating
vote
paper.
again.
Maybe this helps us get out of this fucking loop that we're starting to go into, though. Like, but like Top Dolphin, then it seems like you're connecting the ability of someone to consent with their right to vote. Like, is that effectively the metric you're going by? Basically, if someone has
Somewhat,
that
yeah.
30%, then that means then they should be able to vote.
Yeah,
So like,
I would somewhat say that. By the way, people with mental disabilities can have their voting rights taken away. I guess not by the federal government, by like state governments. According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, I believe anyone with a mental disability who has an understanding of what it means to vote is allowed to vote. So if
Yeah.
for some reason they don't have an understanding of what it means to vote, now I don't know what that means. That's a very nebulous thing and actually kind of
At
scary.
least
But
okay, that's higher than zero.
Typically,
That's
hold
higher
on.
than 0 years
No,
old.
what that
It's
means is
a
typically
general.
power of attorneys would have to allow the person to vote as an individual of themselves. So the power of attorney is giving them the right back to vote.
Yeah, but so
Basically, kind of like
people
a
who
lot of
are
times, like when I
uh,
work, like the patients I've been working with who are mentally ill, it's like those severe capacities. Like it just means a lot of the times, like the paperwork, these types of legal paperwork is offered to them. Like for example, like if they're getting served a court hearing or some type of court summons, like they have the ability to read it and look over it. However, generally speaking, they do not possess that cognitive ability to fully understand like the percussions that will affect them, and thereby it gets pushed over to that other level.
yeah,
You know, I
but again,
more often than not, that's how it's actually utilized in practice.
yeah, and so like people who are 0 years old, they're not going to be voting. They're just not going to vote. So, not a thing. It's not a thing to be worried about. So,
Do we at least all agree that it should be lowered to 16?
16 is fine.
okay.
I
Yeah, I was
don't
putting
know.
this out earlier.
I think potentially like there's like a possible idea of that. I don't like the idea of anyone who considered a minor being able to vote.
And yet, but you
No,
agree though
I
that
think
that consideration of minor is like was just the arbitrary decision earlier though.
yeah, but we draw arbitrary lines all the time, right? That
it,
line has to be drawn somewhere. If we wanted to move that line to
Yes,
16, I'd be
hold
cool
on,
with it. But
exactly.
yeah,
So that arbitrary
that's
line, like
the
if we
question, though.
discuss
That's the
this and
follow-up
open up
point,
this
but like,
can of
yeah,
worms,
but
like
that's the follow-up
this
question
would
for you, Dolphin. Then, like, do you think that arbitrary line should at least go down to 16 then?
I don't know. Like I said, like you can say, does that line go down to 16? Is like, well, am I okay with a 16-year voting? Well, like maybe, but would I be okay with like a 16-year-old like making
Being
like a lot of the
considered an
decisions that they
adult.
make, like being considered an adult?
Yeah.
Like I don't think so. Like I don't think I would want like a 16-year-old like making life or death decisions for themselves in a hospital.
I,
Well,
I don't
well,
think they'd have to be like considered an adult, but it's kind of like if you're a 16-year-old and you're like politicized enough to even want to go there and vote by yourself, it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
I'd say you probably like are not going to like do too badly. You know, there are plenty of like nations in which 16-year-olds can vote. It's kind of like it's fine. It's just, but like when it comes to like, the meme argument of like should 5-year-olds vote, I think that's like a bit like that's a
meme.
line that's been drawn a
Not a
long
meme.
way from that.
It's
Like
not a meme.
it is a meme.
hold
It
on.
is
So
absolutely a meme.
Oh,
the thing
the
is like
problem
we
is
do
one.
draw arbitrary lines, and like if we were to like dig into those and dissect them, every line that we have drawn would apply to every other demographic group that we allow to vote.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
I mean that like if we want to allow 16-year-olds to vote, please give me reasons why you would allow a 16-year-old to vote. And any of those reasons would then negatively impact why like any other voting demographic. So whether it's mental capacity, consenting, knowledge of the electorate, all of that applies
Well,
to every other demographic. So it's just like you were saying, I'm totally agreeing with you, Top Dolphin, that like we have an arbitrary line, and sometimes it's just not worth opening that up.
I think
yeah,
it's
like
a spectrum, right?
what
I think there's like a spectrum, like that spectrum of like where is
yeah.
acceptable, and I think
I
5-year-olds
I
is like
think
far beyond that spectrum
true.
to draw that line.
I
Like
think I kind of poked on this earlier, but like I think Prime was actually in the room when I said this, but earlier I kind of said that there was like there's like something like in America at least, or maybe in the world, I don't know, where it seems like I think accidentally taking away someone's voting rights who has them is probably worse than not giving someone voting rights at like in a way that universally affects everyone, right? So we do draw that arbitrary line, and I'm okay with drawing that arbitrary line. However, like when you would like say like, oh, well, we can apply this to other groups of people. Well, those arbitrary lines get a lot more gray. Whereas when we say like 16-year-olds, right, or 18-year-olds can't vote, right, that affects every single person and an experience that every single human being. Well, I guess if you die before 18, you don't. But every single human being whoever votes will always like go through that like age progression, right? Whereas like if we try to like gatekeep, for example, let's say, oh, like mental capacity from voting, like I said, like the stuff that I saw about disabled people is even a little bit scary because like I would rather like have a disabled person who's like slightly over that bar be able to vote and like cast a bad vote than have like a disabled person be disenfranchised because they didn't quite meet the criteria or whatever, but they were like technically capable of
But
voting.
bar,
But like when you draw, but those lines I feel like are a lot more gray and arbitrary because we're not drawing them at like a hard like thing. Whereas like when we draw them in at like an age and we say, hey, like everyone below this age, we say they're not minors, they're not like we don't allow these people to be responsible for themselves, and therefore we say that these people are not responsible enough to be able to vote for our country. I think it's fair that we say, hey, that's a universal thing that applies to everyone, and there's like no like and like there's no exceptions really.
Jem, you said you agreed with me, and so now I want to hear what you have to say. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, I guess one thing I wanted to bring up a while ago, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but there's this thing called the Iowa Youth Straw Poll. And basically what they do with that is in Iowa, like every election cycle, they basically poll all the students, and it's like pretty wide sample of like I think it was like 20,000 people. And the reason I'm familiar with it was because during the 2020 election, I was a Yang stan. And anyway, so if you look at like yeah, I know. Okay, but if you look at the Democratic primary results for the Iowa Youth Straw Poll, it winds up putting Yang at top and Bernie at second. And it's pretty like if you look at the polling results, it's definitely better than what like actually went down in terms of like, and it wasn't like the results were wildly different from what the electorate actually picked. And some of the Iowa youth straw polls have been like predicted candidate. They've been pretty good predictors of which candidates win the election. Um, so I just don't really see the downside in terms of like outcomes as far as like letting
You would
young
never
kids
change
vote.
Hold on,
anything like
before
this
we
based on the outcome that it would create.
hold on.
That's
And
just
yeah, like you're totally avoiding like all the issues behind like straw polls. Like, yes, they are completely accurate, which the reasons why they are accurate are actually why we should abolish the Iowa caucus to begin with. So the youth straw poll is set up the same way that the Iowa caucuses are set up. So you have to go to a location and you have to be present and stand around for hours at a time. This type of political process is inaccessible, and it just disenfranchises voters. So, of course, the straw poll is going to reflect that because it's the same voters that are not disadvantaged for the same reasons, if that makes sense.
Well, wait. I thought it
Also,
wasn't a
how old
caucus.
are
I don't
the
know.
kids in the straw poll?
It's just in college. So, like, if you're a student registered at Drake, which is a college in Iowa, you are able to attend the straw poll, but it's still held like the caucus.
Oh, well,
Oh.
I think maybe we're just talking about different things because the thing I was talking about were like students like high school and younger.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is. Our youth in Iowa just recently, within the past few years, have gotten rather involved, and I wouldn't even say it's like extraordinarily involved. But there is a youth straw poll with college campuses, and again, it's set up the exact same way as the Iowa caucus and has the exact same problems that the Iowa caucuses have.
Well, I mean, I
so
guess
the
if you're from
Iowa youth
Iowa, then
straw
maybe I
poll
just
looks
like
like it's
misremembered.
administered in high schools or not
Yeah,
just high
high
schools,
school.
but in school districts, not just high schools. But like it's like Iowa like school districts. You sign your school up, and then your school like brings you paper ballots, and you fill them out in
So
class.
I finds like was moving towards something that's important. Okay, so like if anyone here, so Venom, you said 16 is fine, right?
It's within the spectrum. I find
Great,
acceptable. Yes.
14.
I don't know about that, but like, I
Why?
guess
Why not?
it's that bad.
Why
I'm
I
not?
don't
fine
know.
with
Like,
14.
I mean, I guess it's okay for some
Okay,
people. I
great.
don't
Why
know.
not 12?
I don't know. That's fucked up, bro.
Why? Why
You're
12?
getting a
Why?
bit too
Why?
far.
Why not 12?
Do you really want to take this like from like everything, because like you can do this for anything. You can just like, oh, how old should be to like have a gun? How old should be to drive? How old should be how
I
high should
know
be the
this
age
is
of consent?
the
Like
exact
we
same
can do this.
argument.
We can do.
This is
Yes, like
You're right.
so,
This is
but
the
we still
exact
draw
same
the line
argument
for
for all
every
those
one of those
things.
things.
But like when we
Yes.
talk about voting, right? People don't freak the fuck out. That's why we do it on voting, everything but the age of consent. But still, right? We're talking about voting. So why not 12?
Why not 12?
Why not 12?
I do not think that at that point in time, I don't think first of all, 16-year-olds, I can imagine 16-year-olds being problematic if they're disenfranchised, depending on the country, depending on the situation, depending on the society at hand. I think these are things that can be defined based on like location, based on like the society at large. 12-year-olds, I don't know any place in which a 12-year-old is going to be like, why can't I vote? Like, this is fucked up. Like, we're going to make trouble for this. And like, just like, kind of like, first of all,
Yeah.
12-year-olds, who gives a shit? Like, who gives a shit about them? I don't care about them.
This is
Fuck them,
exactly
fuck all
why
them.
people like you are exactly why they should have a vote. Politicians like you. That's why they should have a
Oh
vote.
man. I think the thing that I'm gonna keep going back to, maybe it's like a bad line to draw, but I think that like the universality of the fact that like we recognize that children like physically don't have the ability to like to interpret like the long-term ramifications of short-term actions, right? And you're gonna well, there's probably adults that fall into this category too, yeah. But then I'm going to appeal to the idea that like I think the universality of this, that all children like fall under this category up to some age, and we do draw this line arbitrarily, but this affects all children equally, is what makes me a little bit more okay with like quote unquote disenfranchising these children.
Yeah, I'd say that's a bad argument.
Yeah, and I would also say that like I still haven't heard anyone counter like why can a children not make a decision on their own life in a hospital, but they can go and like vote.
No, I'm saying that it doesn't matter if that's the case, because we don't. That's not something we use for like that's not a requirement that we use for people to vote. That a person has medical agency, right? That's not a requirement that we use for adults voting, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
It requires you to be smart.
You, Top Dolphin, like in regards to that correlation, like so for you, Top Dolphin, like could you potentially like does there necessarily have to have that ability to consent to be able to vote? Like, does someone necessarily have to be able to like have these ability? Well, that sounds so weird. I don't know how to phrase it. You know what I mean? But like, is there a way, like in your mind, where there could be that detachment between like consenting to whatever other event or something and then being voting? Or for you, is there a reason? Or is there a reason why these are like being intrinsically tied together?
I think so. They're intrinsically tied together because I think it comes from like the concept of like autonomy and responsibility. And I think if we like find it okay to like limit like a child's autonomy and responsibility in these other areas, it kind of makes sense that it's okay to limit it in voting as well.
Yeah, like
Right.
to back up, and to back that point up, it's kind of like I can't really comment on like how the U.S. does things like that, because like y'all are kind of fucked up. But like when it comes to like voting, like being considered an adult and being considered a teenager, because of all those things, I believe that some consistency is good for these things. Like here we have systems where you can be considered to be like completely incapable, which means like you really can't make most of the decisions for yourself. Like if you are aged lower than 14, you're considered completely incapable for most circumstances and for most decisions. If you're between 14 and if you're between like 16 and 18, you're considered like partially capable, right? And then from 18 forwards, you're considered like an adult. And every country is gonna have different metrics for like what an adult is. But I do think that like being considered an adult or something that's maybe slightly lower than an adult but getting there. I think that those are good, like it's a good metric for whether or not you are capable of fully engaging in the democratic process.
An
I don't
arbitrary.
think
But it's arbitrary. It's an
it
arbitrary.
is
It's not.
it
It's not
is
a good metric at
it's
all.
functional. It's functional. That's what it is. It's
No, it's not.
functional. Like,
It's not. It's not. It's not though. But we know it's not. We know that people who are 18 or 19 make bad decisions. We know that brains are
yes,
not fully formed until they're 25,
yes.
right? So now, if you want to limit everything until 25, I think that's more
If
of an interesting conversation too, right?
Sure, let's do that. I'd be okay with
yeah,
that. Actually.
Okay. All right. So
if
limiting
you
everything
if you
to
want to only consider people to be adults, if they're like 23, 24, 25, and that works for your country, that works for like every single system that involves people's ability to make decisions, if that works, then yeah, sure. But I don't think that's the case for like
but
most countries
we no,
who
hold
set
on.
at 18
But
and
hold on,
it
the
does
reason
work,
why
like the system
we
functions.
no we want people who are 18 because we want people them to be able to fight. Want them people send them off to war, right? We do these things. We for centuries, right?
Yes,
That
you
we
do.
understood that kids can well make the decision, right? The decision to literally go to war for themselves to fight for their own countries, and they can make a
Yes.
decision to do that, right? Why not the decision to vote, right? And then
It's
and then
Well,
like
we
you keep
can't make
saying
that
that
decision
you
until
keep
we're
saying,
18 in the
but you
United
can't,
States, right?
but
Yeah,
no,
well,
well, I mean,
why? Well,
yeah,
I
but
guess
I'm
the
saying that like
about
that
is
has. I'm saying
you're
that
hanging
if the
yourself.
U.S. was needed it, right, they would actually conscript 16-year-olds, right? That would act if it was that like that, we would have 16-year-olds like manning a fucking artillery gun, right? Like this is a thing that would happen, right? But fuck, shit, saying that well, we keep we say that some people are incapable of doing this. Well, if a child is literally incapable, then they won't do it. So it's not a so it doesn't factor into
Okay.
the argument.
So here's my argument, right? If you're going to make that argument, then make the argument that they should be considered adults, full stop. So you want children to be able to do everything that adults can do at that age,
I
because
didn't say that.
that's the way that we this. But that's the way it goes, right? Because like the only reason
it's
people
not though.
the only reason you even consider people be able to vote at 18 is because at 18 they're considered to be adults. So if you're trying to keep that system going, to keep that structure intact, you're going to have to do the same thing for people who are younger, and that's extremely problematic. And I think I have to explain on Twitch why that's problematic, right? So
Well,
it's very much like that situation.
well, no. So I think probably an issue here though is like I think the issue is no, but it's not this one day you're fucking 17 and then the next day you're 18 with all these fucking rights bestowed upon you. That's not necessarily even true necessarily when we're talking about consent, because even when you get 18 you get the right to vote, but then you still have to wait 3 more years before you can even fucking drink. So this idea of
Yeah, which is stupid
progressively
to get rid of that.
idea of progressively being allotted more agency as you go along, like I mean to me that's not that far fetched of a concept. Like and like even just in regards to the concept of consent, of like basically when you're younger being allowed to consent to things that don't necessarily have as much of a severe negative impact to you. I'm wording it kind of weird, but I think you guys kind of get what I'm saying. But then as you get older, you are getting that access to engage in these more broader, more harmful things that like you are opting into. Like for example, joining like at 18, being an adult and being able to just enlist in the military yourself to 21 to actively engaging in drinking. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, like in that sense, it seems like you could take voting effectively. Like if the argument's for consent, I don't see how even like when you're making the consent argument, how that would kick it back to our arbitrary line when you can just make the same argument of as to why we have different ages for voting and drinking. Why can't voting be before like you can be conscripted into the military? Like in my mind, like if anything, I think that almost kind of helps support their Amanda and Prime's case even more, because it gives kids, for example, 2 extra years to vote for politicians to be able to, maybe maybe they could have voted to keep Bush out, so then they didn't have to go. So then we didn't have to go into Iraq. Well, now they're potentially may get fucking drafted into a war that they didn't have no say in. You know what I mean?
I don't think that makes any sense. Like I don't think it helps their argument at all. I think that the idea that
The idea that like
you
when you grow up,
because like the essence of like a legal structure that defines adults, children, that defines people who are capable, incapable. The defining trait of it is like understanding that certain people have the ability to consent, to understand grave decisions, to understand what they are doing, to make informed decisions by themselves. So if you believe that someone has the ability to make an informed decision on the voting, then that too will extend to all the other decisions. But obviously, we don't want that to happen because
in the example I just gave you though, like now, like I don't know, like in Brazil, like is it basically like do you get is it basically like when you get the right to vote, then you also get the right all of your other rights, like basically for example to drink, because like well
yes.
okay, because like over here, you know, basically it's almost like kind of like a tiered thing.
And I think that's stupid. I think it's stupid that like you can drink at 21. Yeah, I think that's horrible.
Later down the line, and
Yeah, I
so
think that's stupid.
Was the premise here how to get our democracy more progressive, right?
Oh, not
no,
not necessarily was
I
that.
think we're
Okay.
just explaining.
No, the
Yeah,
original premise was
at that point,
Well,
I don't even
well,
know what this is about.
okay.
that was
Well,
the original take.
okay. Well, with that original take, like back to
No boom,
more
no
progressive policies, parents that have to vote and vote with their kids' interest aren't going to want to send their kids off to war. So less war, progressive policies. I win.
It's done. All done.
I mean,
Howard,
until
single parents.
all the kids are conservatives, and then they all vote pro war, and then more
The thing
war.
is most
right?
single parents aren't conservatives, though. Like so
right now, but you can't guarantee that in the future, right? Like we would never want to construct a system of voting based on the outcomes that come from that system.
Very true, which
that's
is
like
why
the
we have
political
but
outcomes
hold
that
on,
come from
that's
that
why we have a
system.
democracy though, so that we can change it within the demographics and the way that like the populace decides it to be. Right now, we should encourage the populace to allow parents to vote for their children.
Well, Pastek, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, but I was about to get a take that there's no correlations between the age and necessarily other stuff that some of you have tried to put. Like the example in the US is the voting age is not related to the drinking age. And it's not the true either in France. Like we don't have the same drinking age and our voting age. Same for wedding. Actually, in France, if you ask for some special paper, you can marry at 15. It's pretty rare, but it happened. And so, therefore, like that correlation does not really exist. So I get that in the US, the debates for like getting to the army was related to voting and myself, but those arguments has already been told. Right now, we are talking about direct democracy in the chat, which is another problem. Like, is representative democracy something that is better than direct democracy? I'm on the way for direct democracy rules, and that's what we're discussing. But I had the chance to experience some types of direct democracy during huge student strikes in France, and it kind of worked at the time. And sometimes, like some of the people in the chat were saying that generally it lean to more populist takes. So therefore, they think that it will be more right wing, but it really depends on where you are and things like that. And there is always the question of scale because direct democracy has not been tried at a larger scale, so it's kind of difficult to have a proper view on that. But when you go on strike, basically you're like saying that the decisions that have been taken by the government or by any places are unlegitimate, and so therefore you're taking over. And in order to take over, you need to have another way to organize democracy, and we chose direct democracy, and it was working. So
Yeah, like, and I know I'm being like the conservative here, this which is like incredible. But I mean, I think participatory democracy, maybe not direct democracy. I think participatory democracy is fine. I think all of those systems are fine. But I think the arbitrariness of the system is to say, well, you're well equipped to make these decisions, but you're not well equipped to make those decisions. You're able to consent to this, but not that. Like, it's kind of like, bro, in my opinion, a consistent and well formulated legal system will be consistent insofar as like what your ability to make decisions is.
But
It's going to be consistent as far as what adults can do. I think it's very stupid that that in some countries you have like a drinking age that's fairly different. That's very different from from the age in which you can have a gun. I think that those things are like weird and silly, and I think that's the nature of the arbitrariness of those lines. And I think if you have a system in which these things are more well defined, and it's not just about the actions themselves, but it's about the values and the abilities that drive those actions. I think that these systems are like better. And again, I hate children. Don't let them vote. Jesus Christ.
But Venom. Like we can recognize, and this is what Mike Plug was saying, right? We can recognize that the harm of these different actions is different, right? So different rules for different things. The harm for voting is not the same.
It's not about the harm.
Oh, okay. So
But
it's not about the harm, then.
Yeah, it's about your rights, right? Because we're talking about democracy, right? So we talk about rights, and your rights are defined by your first of all your abilities to consent to exercising those rights, your ability to understand the full exercise of those rights, and those things are things that we take into account for everything in like liberal democracies. And
It's
so
not.
like your
We
ability
form these arbitrary lines where that does not make any sense.
in which sense?
Like, well, I think you would. Can you repeat that one more time, Venom? Like, just so I get a
Well,
little. Like, I guess I'm kind of confused. Yeah, what you're. Because like, yeah.
I'm saying, right, that your ability to exercise certain rights is dependent on your ability to fully comprehend the weight of the decisions that you are making. This is something that this is a standard
It's
that we
not
apply.
at all.
Sadly,
You're
that's
wrong.
not how
Nope.
it works.
Nope. Wrong.
I mean,
Nope.
I understand that
Give
it
us an
would be
example.
ideal if it was like that, but that's not how it works. Like, lots of people are not understanding everything about economics or politics, and they still have the right to vote. We set an arbitrary lines because that's the less bad that we can do. And yes, this line is arbitrary. Normally in politics, you don't want to
Yeah,
have so much arbitrary stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to
but
kind of
I'm talking
draw a
about
line,
the
and that line
inherent
is what we're discussing about.
So
I'm talking about
Venom,
the
you were.
inherent ability to understand.
So
Uh,
the line
but
is
hold on.
arbitrary, by the way. But like the arbitrary line, it does like map on the
It is.
things. Like it's like this. The 18 is also the age in which we allow minors to be able to like like end their
Enlist.
contracts, right?
Oh,
Like you
sorry.
can't enter a contract before you're 18. You
I
can't.
mean,
That's
I've seen 13 years old that have more
related to
ways
the
to understand some things that about politics than people who are like 75.
So
And
you
I
can go
mean,
ahead and look
just
into
look
it.
at Q's. I mean,
I like
Sorry,
I like
I
some
was cutting you off.
positions, and like when we look at them, is to start from where they're at and deduct them based on the harm that they cause and the harm that we can reduce. And so while we have these arbitrary lines in regards to voting, I think we can reimagine them based upon those rules. So reduce harm and
Yeah, so
increase
like
turnout.
the reason why we want 18-year-olds right to go fight, right? That's the reason why it's not 21. It's because 18-year-olds don't fully comprehend like their own mortality. They don't fully comprehend the tragedy of war, right? They don't understand that. They're hopped up on testosterone and ideas of glory. So you send them onto a battlefield for them to die. That's what we allow them. Why don't we raise the age to 21, right? It would make more sense to do that.
Like
But you don't want to do that. You want more
That's an
soldiers.
argument you can make 100%. That's
But
definitely an
but I'm
argument you
saying,
can make.
but your point, no, but your point was that specifically their rights are dependent on your ability to comprehend the situation. That's not the case. It's
No,
manifestly not the case.
I said on your inherent capacity to understand.
What does that
This,
mean? You
this,
keep saying
okay,
that. What does that
wait.
mean?
This is the all right. Why can't the children drive? Why can't the children like own a gun? Why can't the children do any of those things? It's just about the harm that they can do. Is it just about what they can actually cause, or is it also about their ability to have full capacity of making the decisions to like do those things? Why can't a child decide to do anything that requires like consent? Is because they can't consent, they can't comprehend. We make the assumption that they can comprehend, and that's an arbitrary line that we draw, but it's a reasonable one. It's a reasonable arbitrary line. The same way that we can make a reasonable arbitrary line for when you are capable of understanding the democratic process to its full extent.
Most people
And it's like this.
You're using examples that are wrong. Hold on,
No,
you're using examples
some
that are
adults
wrong. So
cannot
like
do
with
that.
guns, no, you're using examples that are wrong. So like with guns and ownership, there's 30 states that allow minors to own guns. So that like just doesn't make any sense.
12-year-olds,
I mean, some adults
Like-
are not able to also use guns
10-year-olds,
properly or
8-year-olds.
comprehend those things, but we still have an arbitrary line that says that they can, which is problematic.
Exactly. Well, we don't have to make it problematic. That's the thing, is we can reduce harm and increase positive outcomes by moving that arbitrary line. And I feel like the people that are against the opinion that I hold, specifically with regards to letting parents vote, they don't want to reduce harm in our democracy. That's where it comes down to, because I don't see any negative outcomes to this based upon any other laws or any other regulations that we have that aren't already intact. None of that doesn't already apply. So the only thing that we are literally doing, in my mind, is increasing voter turnout and increasing representation within our democracy. So unless you can like shut that argument down, I don't see the issue here.
OH, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I think there's a couple of things that are at stake here. So, Venom, I think one of the issues that it seems to me like you have is a level of consistency when it comes to what we allow children to do, right? So, do you think it's the case that children shouldn't be allowed to vote on every single piece of legislation, right? Like, do you think that every single piece of legislation has the same amount of weight and gravity as others do? And if you don't, why do you think that's the case? Or do you think it's just the fundamental action of being able to vote and enact that level of choice that children aren't able to?
I want to be able to tell you right now. Like that's a good question. I think that there are ways of like training kids, like putting training wheels on democracy, so to speak. I think there are civic courses you can give children. I think the ability for them to like make, like, for instance, elect like someone to be like the president of a class. Like I think that those are things that
Yes.
like that are like okay. I think that there is like a certain extent, the same way that like a children can have a play fight with another child, but can't like literally be a professional fighter. I think that those are like kind of like the places that we go towards like towards like trying to define what a child can do. And these things, yes, are going to be arbitrary to a certain extent, but they're also going to be based on like the material reality of like what their average performance is for any given action.
So I agree with you on the fact that there is a material reality to this. However, I think there is a fundamental difference between a couple of the examples that you just gave right here, right? So earlier you mentioned things like driving or being able to intake alcohol and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I think what's important to note here is that there's a physical component. There's something physically happening to your bodies, and that your bodies have to physically be able to do. And by the time that people are about 16, you have the motor functions to be able to drive a car. By the time you're 21, your body tends to have the capabilities to take in alcohol at better rates, right? So I think if we're talking about strictly a mental capacity, why wouldn't you be advocating to raising the voter age to 26, which is around the time that adults' brains fully develop? So couldn't you just make the argument that this would be a more consistent way of applying who should be allowed to vote is by increasing it to 26 rather than keeping whatever arbitrary line we have right now?
Right. If you're talking about the physical abilities, the physical impacts of alcohol in your body, right? Like if I'm an adult and I have a condition a condition on my liver that makes it so like alcohol is extremely deadly for myself, I'm still allowed to consume it. If a child is not allowed to consume alcohol because it's more harmful on their body, they're not allowed to consume alcohol because they can't coherently make the decision, right? And I understand that's a little bit different from like from just the democratic process, but it is the idea of then of we applying that principle onto it, right? The principle of like what can you do? Can a child consent to hard labor? Can a child consent to doing to all of those things? I think there are things in society like are that we allow children to do that we shouldn't, and I think there are things that we could allow children to do. I think this is all going to be based on the material realities of what children usually are capable of doing to a sane extent, to a sane efficiency, to a sane like performance. And as far as raising the age goes, like I wouldn't be able to tell you. Like I'm sure that like for some people there's a reasonable argument for like raising the adult age for 20, or maybe 50 years in the future. It's going to be reasonable to set the adult age at 25. I think this is also going to depend on like how your society is going to best function and what's going to like work the best as far as like defining adulthood goes.
Okay, well, I have a couple of things that I want to say to that, but I saw that Amanda had her hand raised as well.
Get your
So
points in now. I'm telling you.
okay, for sure. So I again, I think you're still including things that have a very physical component to them, and I think that's a problem because the most physical thing that you have to do with voting tends to be checking off a box and then putting it into a little envelope or something like that, right?
Right. So
as
if it's not
for
physical,
what
what
we were
about
saying,
like the capacity to sign contracts or the capacity to have like power, like power of attorney over yourself in like a hospital or stuff like that?
It goes back entirely to the fact that like the line that we drew is arbitrary, right? And we can
what?
yes, so what? We can change that arbitrary line, but when you do,
you
you
want
have
to know
to
another
apply.
arbitrary line? Like another arbitrary line we draw is that you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote. Why don't we let non-citizens vote? Right?
We should let
Yeah.
non-citizens vote. We should let non-citizens
Agreed.
vote.
Right?
But hold
We
on,
should let
my
non-citizens
point
vote.
is that like all these little avenues that you want to take down these like preconceived issues apply to every fucking demographic. So like I just don't get why you keep wanting to specify certain instances because literally they apply everywhere. So we have this arbitrary line likely based on the fact that when you're 18 you can enlist in the military, you're legally adult. That's the arbitrary line. All the other things that you have issues with can be applied to every other aspect to a person voting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and,
indeed.
let's be clear. In like the case of capacity and the ability to sign contracts, or I also said like the medical power of attorney thing or whatever. Those are cases in which states are allowed to take voting rights away from people who are above the age. So like if you're like too mentally not there, you can have your voting rights. Like you can not have the right to vote. Right.
I mean, and all the alternative for those arbitrary lines can be either impractical or really bad. So as OCHV were saying, like if you want to take like people brains development, you will end up with like aging vote for like 26. And if you want to be like giving certificates or stuff for everything that people can do, you will have also like the place that gives the certificates that will have extra powers to give voting rights for different types of people, which can be problematic. What will you do for other stuff? Like, will you ask the parents? Like, the parents can tell you when you will have the right to vote or the age to drive or whatever. Everything will become kind of blurry and bad, because at the end of the day, we are human. We are human. We don't have all the informations for everything, and we are all making mistakes all the times. None of us have like complete understanding of the systems. We try to do as good as we do with our own beliefs, our own sets of values, and things like that. And so at the end of the day, that arbitrary line has to exist, because this is the only things practical. And the only debates we should have is where to set that arbitrary lines and
Yes,
for
I
what
agree.
reasons.
I agree. The lines are arbitrary. I'd wish the lines were consistent as well. They're
It's not possible
consistently.
to have consistent line. If you try
It
to have
it it it
consistent lines,
it,
you
it,
end
it
up with something worse than the arbitrary lines, which is
not
kind of
necessarily. Like we have different legal systems all
Oh
across the
no,
world.
Venom, you know
We
that's
have we,
false.
we have we have we have we have Argentina, we have Colombia, like we have
well,
places in
how
which
do they do in Argentina? Explain.
we have I can tell more about how we do it here, right? Because like I'm study law here,
No.
but the idea of like having an age set, like being adulthood and capacity being the defining traits of any given right. I think that those are things like lots of countries do, and they do well at it. It's just like, but I'm not going to like go on and on about this. Like I've already spoken about this at length. As far as like increasing the age goes, I mean, I think that's an argument you can make, and that's absolutely, I think that's like a reasonable argument to be having about like increasing the age of adulthood. I'd say that like then there's the practical connotations of that, right? The practical connotations of like what would happen to your economy, your society, your institutional functionability once you raise that age, and then we have a practical argument about it. But it is an argument you can have about it, right? Like as far as like 12-year-olds go, and 10-year-olds and 80-year-olds go, like why can't like if you're talking like physicality, because I don't want to be like crude, right? Like that's the reason I keep bringing up like physical examples, because I don't want to be crude and be like, well, why can't an 8-year-old watch porn technically? Like it's kind of like I don't want to give those examples, right? Because it's like this is a crude thing. It's not physical per se, but it's kind of like it's crude, and they don't have to. But like Dolphin said, there's an example of contracts that you can't sign because you don't have the ability to fully comprehend them, and you can be exploited through it. Same way that children can be exploited in the democratic process in ways that adults also can, but are less vulnerable to. That's the same thing with contracts. Adults can be exploited in contracts, but they are less vulnerable to it. Children are especially vulnerable to certain types of manipulation that are not conducive to the proper function of the democratic processes. You know, so it's kind of like it's. I do think it's harmful for children to vote in that sense.
Yeah, but there's a fundamental difference between voting and signing a contract, and here's what it is. So when you sign a contract, you're including two or however many individual actors. Where when you vote on something, what you're doing is you're trying to establish a basis for legislature for all people in that area, right? So you're giving representation rather than trying to evoke some sort of personhood. When you vote, you're not evoking a personhood.
Depends
You're
on what you
giving
vote,
the.
CHV.
I'm sorry.
It depends on what you vote. If you have a referendum, you're not giving representations, but that's just a detail.
But I think you understand what I'm trying to say though. Like one is civic, one is a public matter, and the other one is a private one.
Yeah.
Right. So that's when we say that something is becoming democratized. We tend to mean that it's becoming more public. Right.
I don't know if I agree with that characterization. Like both are exercises of individual rights. Like both are the exercise of individual rights based on certain premises that I don't think are present for people who are 8 years old and 6-year-olds. I don't think these people can. I don't think they can properly represent themselves, right? The same way that they can't properly represent themselves in almost any other facet of life. And I think like for democracy, you can make the argument that people were making earlier, right? That like maybe the parents should be able to like vote for their children, but then it brings the whole other situation where like one person is worth 2 votes or 3 votes or 5 votes even.
Well,
And
Your entire
you're taking the
argument can be applied everywhere.
You're taking the arguments backward. The problem is not having someone that is not really good at voting. The problem is having people who understand problems not being able to vote. Like people generally who are like 6 and doesn't understand politics, they probably will not even go to the voting booth in the first place.
That's exactly what I've been saying literally this entire time.